From the most trusted names in local news, KDPG Sunday Edition.
Well, they say the truth is sometimes stranger than fiction, and that is certainly the case when it comes to a notorious murder case from 2006. A Pennsylvania state trooper, Kevin Foley, from Indiana, Pennsylvania, was convicted of first-degree murder in the death of Blairsville dentist Dr. John Yelnick in what was called a lover's triangle case, a case that involved Yelnick's wife, Michelle. That case is now the subject of a new Pittsburgh Post-Gazette serialized podcast, and here is a short excerpt from the first part of this series.
A lot of blood. I can remember some footprints through the blood. If I remember right, they went towards the kitchen.
I mean, I knew there was bad blood, for want of a better term, but I never thought it would come to this.
It's funny how fate works. You can't really think about one without thinking about the others.
How many books have been written about love triangles, right? Let's see. Shakespeare did one, didn't he?
For many of us that lived through this, this is a Lifetime movie of the week.
To Love and to Perish was recorded in the studios of Point Park University's Center for Media Innovation, and it is written and hosted by Mike Foucault, Enterprise reporter and staff writer at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. It was produced by Ashley Murray and edited by Virginia Lynn. And we will be talking about this intriguing murder case this morning on the KDPG Sunday Edition with Mike Foucault and with Dr. Cyril Wecht, a forensic pathologist who was involved in the investigation and prosecution of this case, and is also in a book that he has written. It's a big chapter in this book, as a matter of fact. The book is called Final Exams, and it's written by Dr. Cyril Wecht and Donna Kaufman, True Crime Cases from Cyril Wecht. And again, this particular murder case is featured in this particular book as well. Now, David Shribman, the executive editor of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, is away this week, and Jerry Micco, the senior assistant managing editor of the Post-Gazette, Newsslide, joins us for this morning's discussion. Jerry, thanks for joining us again, and thank both of you for being with us.
Thanks for having us.
EPG Sunday Edition. Let's get into the podcast. This is the second one you've put together, right?
That's correct. Ashley Murray and I last year produced a podcast about Dakota James and Paul Kochu, the two young men who went missing and ended up dead in the river under mysterious circumstances. As you said, To Love and to Perish is our new one, and it has to do with the murder of Dr. Yelnick.
Now, there have been a lot of interest in all of these crime stories through the last couple of years, you know, to the making of a murder, the staircase, a lot of things like. Is this kind of that same sort of thing? Is there a question that's left at the end of this, or is this pretty well just retelling what really happened in this case and some insight into it?
Well, yes, I'd like to think there's some insight into it. I think it's a more nuanced kind of thing, and I think people can engage with it because it's audio. And you could be driving your car, you can be mowing your lawn, running, and listening to this. And so what we did was, and Dr. Wecht is one of the prime examples of the great people we have in this podcast, we have comments from over 12 people, former Governor Corbett, who was the Attorney General, friends, family, state troopers, all looking back 12 years later of the effect of this on the community of Blairsville and on the people who knew him, but also there are still questions. Was justice completely served in this case? So we take a look at all of that.
Okay, well, let's talk a little bit about what did happen in this. We mentioned it here. It's a love triangle kind of case. A dentist was murdered. A state trooper was convicted of murdering him, and the state trooper was having an affair with the dentist's wife. Is that the basics of it?
That's the basis of it. Basics of it. It was his estranged wife. Kevin Foley was living with Michelle. It was a protracted and very contentious divorce and custody battle between Dr. Yelnick and Michelle. Allegations of child abuse, sexual abuse, all unfounded. So it was a very ugly 3 years that these two people were estranged. And it was Holy Thursday of 2006, his body was found sliced and slashed to death in his home. And the obvious suspect was Kevin Foley.
And he was arrested. And here on KDKA-TV, we followed this story as well, and this is a report that was filed back in 2007. Former Pennsylvania State Trooper Kevin Foley said nothing as he was taken into custody in handcuffs. Foley is accused of killing John Ulinek, a dentist from Indiana County. Ulinek was found dead in his Blairsville home in April of last year. Officials say that he bled to death after a violent struggle with the killer. Ulinek was repeatedly slashed with a knife in the face, the neck, and the torso. Police say that Foley had been living with Ulinek's estranged wife, Michelle.
We had a well-known hatred for Dr. Ulinek. Foley had been having a romantic relationship with Ulinek's estranged wife, Michelle. For more than 3 years, Ulinek and his wife had been going through a bitter divorce. And on one occasion, Foley allegedly asked another state trooper if he would like him to help kill Dr. Ulinek, although the trooper did not take the comment seriously at the time.
Evidence presented to the grand jury said Ulinek's estranged wife stood to collect a $1 million life insurance policy. Michelle Ulinek was also about to lose $2,500 a month in support under the couple's divorce settlement, which was days from being approved when John Ulinek was murdered.
It was obviously a very dark and disturbing day for the Pennsylvania State Police.
Police say they found a bloody shoe print at the crime scene, and it was the same type of running shoe that Foley wore. Police also say that Foley had a fresh 2-inch gash above his eye the day after Ulinek's murder. Surveillance videos showed a vehicle matching Foley's was near Ulinek's home the night of the murder. And police say that Foley was known to carry and to play with a knife, which disappeared after the murder. We would like to bring in now Dr. Cyril Wecht. You testified in this particular case. It's one of the cases that you have in this book that you have written. Was there any mystery as to, I mean, it took a while to solve this, right?
Well, I performed the autopsy to begin with. At that time, I was doing the autopsies for the Indiana County Coroner and District Attorney. So then I ultimately testified, as you have indicated. Yes, it took quite a long time. If I'm not mistaken, Mike, about 17 months.
Absolutely.
This is incredible because it became well known. And you know, I'm not going to mention any names, but I have Pennsylvania State Troopers that come to a lot of my autopsies, and over all that time, you know, we would just talk amongst ourselves privately, of course. The delay, obvious then, is even more blatantly disturbing when you think about it now, that it took almost a year and a half, and I believe because of the intervention of the state Attorney General's office. They took over. Somebody that must be mentioned in this program is Mary Ann Clark, the cousin of Dr. Ulinek. That woman was so tenacious, so firm from the very beginning. She's active in the community and Republican politics. She knows people there and so on. And so she wasn't hesitant about speaking out. And she made it clear from the beginning to the authorities, the sheriff and the coroner, and the mayor, that the Pennsylvania State Police should not be involved in that case. She almost literally barred the door from them when they were called in after the local police. The death itself is a real how shall I say, it can be a textbook of blunt force trauma, beating and assaulting with a weapon and so on. The injuries were multiple in the, I think a couple dozen or more that I identified individually in the autopsy. I don't want to become too graphic, but I will tell you without exaggeration that the injuries and the neck, the cutting of the neck, was so extensive and so deep that it was literally an incomplete decapitation. The head of the victim, Dr. Ulinek, was pushed through these glass panes that lined the sides of the the front door to the house. And it's clear, I went up there afterwards and examined the scene, and everybody had come to the same conclusion. Dr. Yelnick, in an attempt to flee out the front door, as he got there, his head was pushed through those glass panes, and then he was struggling, of course, and you can just imagine what that's like.
Mike, if I can ask you this question, Dr. Weck alluded to this here. Why was there such a delay in trying to solve this case? If it was fairly well known that, I know you, just because someone's having an affair with somebody doesn't mean that they would have committed a murder, but it would seem that would be a prime suspect right away.
Well, if you ask any investigator, any homicide investigator, you always start from the inside and work your way out. You start with the people closest to the victim. In this case, the state troopers who he expressed his feeling, this is Foley, that Yelnick should be dead. He asked another trooper to help kill him. None of those troopers went to their supervisors. None of them. Even after the murder. None of them went to say, hey, by the way, you might want to take a look at him. So is it the thin blue line? What happened after a year was that Mary Ann Clark, as Dr. Weck said, went to Tom Corbett, the then Attorney General, and said, you need to take over this case. A year went by and nothing happened. And so the Attorney General's office did take over the case. Tony Krastik, veteran prosecutor, former Allegheny County prosecutor. Regis Kelly, special agent for the Attorney General's office, former Allegheny County homicide investigator, investigated the case, and within six months, there was an arrest. And why it took so long, I think we can
And it was an arrest that no one was really surprised was going to happen. Is that right?
Nobody was surprised, but everybody was surprised about the delay.
The delay, but not necessarily who was arrested in this case.
That's right.
We will continue our discussion on the KDPG Sunday Edition in just a moment.